So we're going to talk a little bit about Aimpoint Express tonight. Have you ever used that in your own game? Have you ever, do you watch much golf on TV? You ever see Adam Scott go like this with 4 fingers out?
No.
Okay, so great. You're going to learn something new tonight. So we were just talking about the flag stick. The one little quick thing in theory, the only time that I've really seen it from caddying when it really hurts folks is downhillers, especially right to lefters downhill. If the ball is barely dying in the hole, it dinks the flag stick and then bounces out. I see that happen a little bit more often than it should. So just keep that in mind. But other than that, I leave it in almost all the time. So green speeds are measured by a stimp meter. I've set up this clinic as if you guys are beginner golfers, so sorry if I'm talking down to you here, but a stimp meter basically just is a inclined plane. You put the ball on it and then they raise the lever until the ball releases, and it rolls a certain distance downhill and then it rolls a certain distance uphill. They average that out, and that's the green speed for the day. Based on the first few times that I've played out here at Westdale, I'd say the greens average probably a 9 in the dormant season, but it just depends. If it's downhill, it could be an 11 or a 12. But on a flat putt out here, I think it's about a 9. And that went into our calibration that we'll get into for Aimpoint Express a little bit. Capture speed, or a fancy way of saying the best speed for the ball to go into the hole, is considered 1 to 1.5 feet past the hole. So if I'm putting from here, we're looking to be about here past the hole, because the comebacker is a tap in, and believe it or not, the hole is effectively larger if you have the right pace. So if you've got a speeding bullet coming in, it's going to have a lot less hole to interact with than a ball that's just nicely trundling towards the hole. Any guesses on the maximum capture speed of a ball? That we've all had one that's rocketing in the hole, hits the lip, bounces up, and goes in the cup. They've somehow come up with this number.
4 miles per hour.
I don't know the calculation. It's 48 inches past the hole. And the reason they don't want you to dive in the hole is because of like the volcano effect. You've ever had a putt where it's rolling to the hole, looks like it's going to go in, and then just kind of rolls backwards? Sometimes when they cut a cup, there's just a little bit of a raised element that it doesn't favor you to barely dive into the hole. So keep that in mind with our Aimpoint Express. Everything you read, 100-foot putt, the reads that come out on Aimpoint are all 1 foot to 1.5 foot past the hole. And then in terms of the attitude when you're green reading, I like to think of it as it's a puzzle. Let's try to figure out the puzzle. And when you're putting, stick to what you want to try to do instead of wondering what happens if I miss or something like that. It seems very subtle, but if you stick to what I'm just trying to do, it's like a mindfulness thing. It gets your head in the right space so you can react to the situation. And it all goes into a process orientation. So to me, great green reading and great putting is all about the process. The Dallas Cowboys coach was famous for saying that. Didn't work out so well for him, but it was all about the process. All right, so green reading is a puzzle. What are the clues? All right, so wind, when you approach a putt, wind has a surprisingly large impact on the ball. It's got a little bit out here today, but not too bad. Green texture, wet, sandy, firm, mushy. You kind of just get a sense for, is this going to roll really quickly or slowly? Green speed, slow, fast. Slope is, most people read greens just visually, so they're looking for clues, which way is downhill. This green's kind of a good example though, because it's a man-made deal, so it's kind of like, which way is downhill? It kind of all mounds off. So this is a good example of why Aimpoint Express might be helpful. So visually, the best way to read a putt that I've found is from below the hole here, if I'm going to look for where to aim, and then let's say I'm putting from here to that hole, I come to this side, the bottom side, in order to judge if it's uphill or downhill. It just gives you a better sense of what you're looking at. So try to read your putts from below the hole to check for your start line, and then come on the bottom side underneath. It gives you the best possible way to look to see if you're uphill or downhill. But a better way than that is Aimpoint Express, because your feet don't lie. We're going to start to feel gravity. We're going to feel more weight in our right foot or left foot. That'll give us a clue where downhill is. An old school way of visually reading the greens is, imagine we had a giant bucket of water that we pour on the green, and where would it filter off? But sometimes that's a little bit hard to see, especially on man-made humpy bumpy greens. Does everybody know what eye dominance you are? Right eye or left eye? Mm-hmm. Okay, so with both eyes open, Curtis, make a little circle around my head. Okay, now close your right eye and close your left eye. Which one has me centered in it? So you're right eye dominant. Okay, so that's going to come into play here in a little bit. Let's step on over here. I'll take the camera here, sweetie, thank you. Let's come over to our calibration station. What we have here is with my Husky digital level. You can get these at Home Depot or Lowe's. You're looking for the Husky because the Husky gives you a readout in percentages. If you read out in degrees, your numbers are going to be off. So I'll have y'all step in here about 1 pace behind the ball, and we're going to put up your fingers until we find that magic angle. So I'll let you step in there first.
We're lining up the edge of our finger or the middle of our left finger?
You kind of want it just to eclipse the edges, the middle of the ball and your left finger, right, and then the middle of the wrench on your right finger. So if you play with your elbow bend, you can find that magic angle. Have you found it? Okay, so it doesn't have to be Mr. Roboto keeping that perfect, but just keep in mind where your angle is there, okay? All right, so that'll be maintained no matter what percentage you encounter on the green. That's based on today's green speeds. That should correlate pretty clearly. And you're right, so you have to play with the bend in your elbow a little bit.
Back and forth this way, okay.
Yep.
So, all right, I got it.
Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, Curtis, we'll get you dialed in.
So this fills the space.
Correct, that should fill the space.
Feet together.
About a pace behind the ball, that's good. All right, excellent. Anybody ever heard the myth that grain grows towards the setting sun?
Yeah.
I was told that for a long time, but the USGA put out a thing where they said there's no official understanding on which way that grain grows, that it's just sort of unpredictable. I was told also that it grows downhill. Apparently that's not true.
Bagger Vance said that too.
Who's that?
Bagger Vance.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, I guess Bagger's wrong according to old Mike Davis at the USGA. We'll see. But a way to read grain, often you'll see something that's dull or shiny. So if it's shiny, you know you're down grain, it's going to be fast. If the grass you're looking at is dull, it's going to be like swimming against the tide. It's going to be a very slow, grainy putt. What else? Oh, another myth. Do you guys plumb bob at all?
I used to have the string and the...
Yeah, so there's you see some guys that still do it. Unfortunately, I'm kind of a golf nerd, so I read this guy's thesis. He was a physics student, and he put together like a 50-page thesis that was debunking it, because the root issue is that you can't stand perfectly perpendicular to the ground. So unless you can guarantee that you are perpendicular, you're going to get a bad...
Yeah, that is old school. I've never done that.
But so again, that's another reason why Aimpoint Express, in my opinion, is the best way to read putts. This is a relatively straight putt, but on a downhill putt, a severely downhill putt, you're going to have to add a finger. If it's a 2, you train your body to feel that it's a 2, but it's very downhill, it's going to be a 3. Uphillers, it works out about the same. It's the reason that downhillers you got to add a finger is because the ball's got to be traveling so slowly, and it's going to interact with the turf longer, that you got to compensate and play a little bit more break. And then Aimpoint Express for double breakers is pretty simple. If you find that the putt breaks both ways, you just net them out. So if you find that it's a 3 going left to right and a 2 going right to left, it's a 1 heading that way. So
you should feel that 2 degrees in your feet.
So yeah, come to the middle section of the putt here. So if this is our putt starting point in the hole, Aimpoint Express tells you to come to the middle portion of the putt, and now you can stand directly on your line. The rules of golf are cool with you standing directly on your line. So do you feel a little bit more weight in your right foot there?
Mm-hmm. Because the slope?
Yes, correct. That's about a 2% grade.
Huh. Yeah, I can feel it. I didn't ever think of that either.
So if you got to stand perpendicular to it, so you can feel more weight in your right foot, so you know it's a 2% grade. So we're going to break off this way.
Get that when you're doing your lining up. And then...
Yeah, you can do this just walking around the hole. You just pull in a little bit of data. Which way is this thing breaking?
It feels a little lower when you walk.
Mm-hmm. So let's...
I didn't feel it so much when I was standing still, but as I walked.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's a great clue that not a lot of people take advantage of, especially now, like I said, because the rules of golf allow us to stand right on our line. I was actually caddying for Tommy Armour III, and just a fun deal. And I was trying to be courteous and do Aimpoint Express and not get right on his line. And he said, "Hey, pro, what are you doing? Why don't you just stand on my line?" I said, "Oh, I didn't want to scuff it up." He's like, "Oh, you're not going to hurt anything." So I'd rather have a good read than you mess up my line potentially. So let's take a look at some other situations. Now that you have your calibration, let's look at some putts and try to make some stuff here. So if we're going to go from here, all right, let's say we're going to start right here. We're going to come to the middle portion of the putt. Where you think the most break is what they say. The most break in the middle portion of the putt is probably like right here. And that's a 0. Okay, so these greens are fairly flat. So if we're going to aim straight at it, it ought to be a pretty straight putt. Let's see if this is right. And it's a little bit of artistry, and you got to factor in grain and imperfections and whatnot. But if we put it pretty straight, should be pretty straight.
Oh, that's how you putt right there.
Okay, let's try another one. All right, let's practice on this one, y'all. This is a 1.5. All right. So yeah, come and stand by the digital level. See if you can feel the 1.5. So you feel that?
If you look at it from this side.
How can I know this is a 1.4?
On the left.
It's just training. It's practice. And another fun factoid is, if you're going to play in a USGA event, the most percentage you're ever going to see near the hole, anywhere near the hole, is a 2%. If you go play golf and you got a big 60-footer, sometimes you might have a 6 or a 7. So if you're let me set this down. So if we've got a 6 on an Aimpoint Express, you just add a finger. And so that's the funkiest thing about this whole deal. For some reason, one finger correlates to about 1 percentage point. So let's try this putt, y'all. This is a 1.5, so remember your elbow bend. And it's going to be somewhere out in here. It's breaking a little left. So let's see your stuff here. So focus on what you want to try to do. Forget what if I miss and I look embarrassed, or if I get embarrassed. So try to, no, you're good. All right, so just a little firm. All the putts are based on 12 to 18 inches past the hole. So that went about 4 feet by the hole. Okay, That went about 3 feet by the hole. Now
Gotcha. Okay.
Really?
yeah, the faster it goes, the less break it's going to take. All right. Yeah, that one didn't break much. All right.
Like a half a cup.
So where does your, yeah, let's just call it a 1, not a 1.5. So where does a 1 put you?
So it'd be like about a cup out. Just
About right here?
there. Yeah, right about there.
Okay.
I believe that's
So if it's a 1.5, what you do is you put up 1 finger, and then you put up 2 fingers, and then you figure out where the middle point of that invisible finger would be.
all right. That's it.
Ta-da!
Oh, excellent. Little volcano cup. All right, y'all practice on that one. I'm going to find a funky one here for us to do. Here we go. This is a right to left significant breaker. You're going to get a couple of these out here.
Hitting up to that guy.
We're going to hit back up to our wrench. We got a 3. Come stand by this bad boy and feel the feel of
Wow, that's a whole lot of difference.
a 3. You're going to feel a lot more pressure in your left foot. All right. So
That means 3.
Curtis, why don't you do us the honor of telling us where your calibrated 3 finger, if we're standing behind the ball there, kind of show me where I need to put a target line down based on 3 fingers.
You go 3 out from the cup.
Yeah, target 3 fingers.
About here?
Oh, it's
Okay. All right, let's try to aim there and see if that's enough.
Because of the stance in your eyes. Well,
further away you are, perspective will make the whole.
Yes, sir. Let's see it.
he's basing this on a 15 foot.
Oh, from the hole.
Yeah, that's kind of what he's been.
All right, that's the right line. Give it a little more pace.
Look at that.
Excellent. That's good pace.
Button for the bunny.
This is what I was going to talk about at the end. If you've got a crazy breaking putt like this where it just never seems to stop going by the hole, take a look at where these things are going to collect eventually. They're going to collect on the fall line here. So this putt coming back, everybody agonizes over what it's going to do. It's just going to be straight. It's just going to be straight. So anytime you got a mega break and then the ball rams past the hole, just plan on having a straight up pillar.
Okay.
That's
That
just,
makes it easy.
yeah, it's just a nice little fun factoid. Something that I've developed from caddying a lot is the brain loves a narrative. So whenever you're rolling up to a putt, I've caddied for a bunch of tour players that they kind of tell a story about what the putt is going to do. And instead of being, 1 cup out left, it's like this putt is pretty flat, barely breaking to the right.
Okay.
So if you can kind of give yourself a narrative
story
like that,
instead of a
something abstract.
Okay.
The brain loves kind of abstraction when you're doing something athletic like this. So instead of getting honed in, like, gotta be a cup out, gotta be a cup out, let's just think this is going to be pretty flat, breaking a little to the right. And another thing that I've had success with is, let's see what happens when we roll this a cup out left. You sort of take it for granted that you're going to roll it a cup out left. Put the cart in front of the horse a little bit. So it's just kind of a fun little brain game you can do. So let's see what happens if we start this a cup out left to the hole. Just a tad firm. So this cup is kind of old, but if you're playing a course that cuts their cups every day, you're going to see a dull side of the cup and you're going to see a sharp side of the cup. That's grain. So the ball tends to travel towards the dull side of the cup. That's just another little factoid you can use. I'm sure you guys have already been using that for years, but in case you weren't, this one's not the best because it's been cut for several days, but on a freshly cut cup, you're going to see one edge that's quite smooth and another that's quite jagged. So just remember, like that tide we talked about, it's going to work towards the tide.
The smooth part?
It's going to work towards the fuzzy part.
Okay.
just because the machine is cutting, and that's kind of cutting into the tendency of the way that the grass is growing. And again, the USGA doesn't really know which way grain is, so all you can really do is look at the cup or look at the shininess or dullness of the grass. Dull is into the grain very slow, shiny is down grain very fast. So if you go to a golf course that's got very fast greens, you get invited to a fancy country club and they're rolling 12s, you're going to have to change your calibration. You're going to have to bring it towards you, which gives you more break. The faster the greens, the more break you got to play, because you got to hit the ball more softly. So it's going to travel longer, and gravity's going to do more work on it. But all of this goes into solving the puzzle. Like we said, green reading's kind of a puzzle. Most people kind of think that putting is lame or a boring part of the game. I used to, but now it's my favorite part of the game. And the better you get at green reading, the better putter that you'll become, and you'll get better at golf. Yeah, it's 40% of your strokes occur with the putter.
On the putter.
Half for yours. Break right. All right, but I think it should be a 1. A little uphill 1. Let's see it.
That's from 15.
Or
is it?
It doesn't matter at this point. Now that you've got your calibration, that stays the same. What changes is the number of fingers.
Okay.
So for putting, we want to be about 1 pace behind the ball. Put up our close our non-dominant eye. Put up 1 finger. The right edge of the finger eclipses the hole, and then so on the left edge of our finger is where we want to start this thing. Can I borrow your putter?
Sure.
So I'm looking. Are y'all about out here for a 1? Okay. Let's see if I can do another one-hander lander. Have y'all ever heard the spiel about what's more important, the line or the speed?
No, it's combination. Of
Yeah, so I'll show you another little deal here. So I remember as a junior golfer, the instructor said, "What's more important, line or speed?" And then he did this. He said, "Well, you tell me." He said, "All right, we're going to play this 2 cups out left." And he comes in and goes like this. "All right, I'm going to start this 2 cups out left." And I said, "Oh, okay, I guess speed is more important. The line is important, but if you can get it within 2 feet, that's your friend." So people fall in love with the line, they say. So it's good to be aimed properly, but then feel the slight uphill speed. Yeah, it just takes it early.
It's closer.
Send a speeding bullet up there. Felt like you smashed that, and it was just about right.
Good.
Visualize this thing coming in at like 7 o'clock. If we're looking directly at 6 o'clock in the cup, bringing it in at 7 o'clock. That'll be the largest hole for the golf ball to go into. That's a good putt. It's a good putt. One of my favorite golf writers talks about universe 1, universe 2. So when I'm in universe 1 back here behind the ball, that's the analytical part of my brain trying to figure out an algorithm, basically. Where do I need to aim for this thing to go in the hole? It goes into a plan. So before I take any step towards the ball, I'm creating a plan here. Okay, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, all right, 2 cups out left is my plan. Okay, then I start to visualize. Jordan Spieth talks about seeing a movie reel in his head, that it's not him looking at the hole. His consciousness is occupied by running a movie reel. Okay, so then I start the movie reel, and then I try to get the putter to go in 2 looks. So I consider this part of my first look, 1. All right, then still downrange. All right, when I'm down at the ball, even though I'm looking at the ball, my awareness is still on the movie reel. And that's the kind of the secret sauce there. So I'm looking here, but I'm really thinking down there. I take it 1 last look at the hole, and then I let it rip. And I want you guys to develop some sort of trigger that when For me, it's when my head snaps back to the ball. So I come in here, first look, second look, and then as my head comes back to the ball, I want that putter to be gone.
Oh, wow.
That way I don't have any hesitation or anything. And some people, it looks like you do forward press comfortably. So whatever it is, that's what we'll talk about next week.